Hello, everyone. I'm Adam Bradford with D&D Beyond, and we are here for the first development update and community Q&A session of the decade. We'll take a look at what we're going to discuss today, latest updates. We're back in the saddle, so we have taken a big, long break, and everyone is feeling completely refreshed and recharged. It was really, really nice to have that time. It always is every year. We appreciate everyone out there being patient with us. I know that you probably missed some articles over the time and all of that, but it is an important time for our teams to be able to recharge the batteries and really just hit the ground running when we come back for the new year. So this Monday was really the first day that folks were starting to come back into the office, and we're really, really excited. Everybody is already pushing ahead, doing all the work that we're going to start here in 2020. And then we did have some downtime over the weekend, and as we shared as that downtime was occurring, I am going to touch base at a high level. I don't want to bore anybody with overly technical details, but I certainly would like, in the spirit of transparency, as hopefully all of our fans know at this point in time, if this isn't your first development update, you probably are aware that we value transparency above many, many other things, and we want to be open and honest with our community. So we'll share at a high level what went on, and most importantly, what we're doing to address that and to do our best to ensure that it doesn't happen, or that if it ever happens again, it's as minimal as humanly possible. So we'll go through that as well, and then talk about upcoming. And then there should be plenty of time for questions at the end, because again, we just started back this week. Not too many new things have been released the former week, but we'll start getting into that swing as we get into the subsequent weeks here of 2020. All right, so the Sapphire Dragon, that's the same one that is in that, I think it's $300 dice set that you could buy that had the sapphire in it. So that Sapphire Dragon is available now on D&D Beyond. Go check it out. All the proceeds from D&D Beyond will go to Extra Life, so great cause. And we've had a whole lot of people already pick up the Sapphire Dragon. So just jump on the bandwagon. I love gem dragons because I love psionics, so you need to check it out. We are, as we reported at the end of last year, working on a player mobile app that will have the character sheet in it. I can't wait to reveal a little bit more about that pretty soon. Encounter tracking is in progress. We showed off some demo videos the last time we were together, but we are in progress on that. Digital dice rolling, very excited about the direction here. And I think we will have some alpha discussions before too much longer on that. And then a couple of other things that came in this last week. We have removed the mobile device limit that previously existed, where if you subscribed, you could have unlimited devices. And if you did not subscribe, you could only use it on, I believe the limit was something like 6. This was because of just some problems ultimately that limit was causing, especially when we start to think about things like having separate apps for separate types of functions. And so we went ahead and removed that limit at this point in time. It probably is not going to impact you much at all, but we did want to make you aware that that had happened. And then finally, we had a billing name change. So when we were acquired by Fandom, we changed over the billing statements that people would receive for subscriptions and even product purchases. And I believe it said Curse initially, and then it ended up saying Fandom when we were acquired there, and that was producing some confusion. And so at this point in time, those billing statements and notices that you get should say D&D Beyond. So hopefully that's going to eliminate the confusion about what it was that you bought. So those are the latest updates. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about the downtime that we had, I believe it's Saturday and Sunday coming into this week. So a few things here, and I want to be abundantly clear that these few things that I'm about to say are not remotely uh, offered up as excuses. Nothing that I'm going to talk about here today is an excuse or anything like that. This is something that we take very, very seriously. I think that in the 2.5 years of existence that we've had for D&D Beyond, this was the first, what we would classify as major outage of the service. And really, if you're looking at it that way, we have done pretty well with that up to this point. Again, not offering that as any kind of justification or excuse, but saying that means a few things for us, right? That so first of all, since this hasn't been something that's happened, we've had downtime, we've had scheduled downtime, we have been down, an hour or two here or there, and we got right back up quickly. This one was longer than an hour or two, and so one of the factors that played into this is since this hasn't happened yet, our teams haven't had a lot of practice at being able to respond to something like this happening. So, one of the positives that came out of this was it did actually allow our teams to engage with something more serious like this. And we really have, in our retrospective, tightened up a lot of the processes. And again, we have top-notch teams, some of the best developers that I have ever worked with, and throughout my I'm getting too old, long career. And so again, I think that we're in a good place going forward. But this was a little bit of a new situation that we were coming up against. So thinking about it, also from that perspective, the timing was about the worst that it could have possibly been. As I said, we were on a holiday break, and it was literally the last weekend of that break. That did not affect. Obviously, we had people on call and everything else, but it was very, very unfortunate timing that happened during our break. Again, not offered as excuses, just kind of putting those up as descriptive factors into what was going on here as well. So then, what happened? Our web nodes. So we're in AWS, and our web nodes maxed out their CPU. And naturally, so if you don't know what CPU is, to be honest, I don't think I did until a few years ago. But it's just how much the processing is happening on the computer itself. So, as we're on these nodes, they maxed out their CPU. The natural response to this is to scale up the web nodes, because it just that's something that you can do relatively easily in AWS. So we did the normal action that would normally happen there. But where the real problem came in was that some of the metrics that we had set up and configured to tell us, feedback on that change of scaling up the web nodes, they were just inaccurate. So again, the configuration was not proper, and they told us that we were using, less CPU, but the slowness of the site did not improve at that point in time. So as a result of the inaccuracy of those metrics from that, analytics software that we were using, we chased a lot of red herrings. So people were just, slamming their head against the wall, trying to figure out what on earth was going on, because it just seemed to not make any sense. And really, the truth kind of came out that nothing else was going to make sense, because we were just acting on some imprecise information. So we scaled up the database node, which is another step that you would take here. And when we did that, it caused some other problems and other services that we had. So we fixed those services, which is nice. So if we ever have to scale up the database node, we are able to understand, what impact that had on some of our other services, fix those services, but that still was not doing anything for the site slowness and some of the outages that were happening. So it was at that point in time, hours into this, that we discovered the initial scale up of the web nodes metrics were not correct. And we saw that it was not actually utilizing all of the nodes properly. We got all of that fixed. Web nodes scaled up for real, and then the site stabilized, and everything was okay. And of course, everything has been okay since that time. So ultimately, again, none of this is offered in any way as an excuse. We really are just doing this in the spirit of transparency, that this is something that has not happened before. And then the final thing that I'll share here is, as this happened, we had another, we'll call it a champagne problem, but we had another factor that played heavily into this. And that was that as of this Saturday, and we don't know if it was because of post holiday gifting, post holiday gaming, whatever was happening, we had twice the number of concurrent users on the website than we have ever had. So take the record number of concurrent users that we had on the website at one time, and Saturday, as all this kicked off, we had double that record number. Okay, so again, the service is growing, just leaps and bounds. But this that rapid of a growth and that rapid of a hit was kind of what started and kicked off a lot of this. So again, spirit of transparency, we wanted to share what was going on. So our response to this is we have updated all of our configurations to make sure that we're unlocking all available CPU on all these massive web nodes. The metrics and everything are tying in now. We're confident that we have the right information if anything like this happened again. And then the other thing is a longer term solution that we have already been in the process of for about a year and a half now. And that is over time migrating all of our services from a kind of monolithic framework that everything is currently based on to what is called microservices. And so if you're in the industry out there, if you're a developer, engineer, you probably know what that is. And we do have some microservices that are functioning properly, but this is something that we will be continuing to do over time. And every single time that we spin up a new microservice, these kinds of issues are going to be mitigated more and more and more. And so this is also why it's important that as we are making changes to, and adding new enhancements and features to the website, we will be taking a little bit of time here or there to make sure that we are appropriately migrating those services into the microservices where they need to be, to make sure that we can continue to scale with the just hungry, rabid demand that we're seeing for the service, and that continues to surprise us. So I welcome any questions about any of this. I might not be the person that can fully answer it if it's too technical, but we're going to move on from here. But if you have questions, we can absolutely get to that during the Q&A time. The one thing that I can say for sure is we genuinely do appreciate our fans. We appreciate your patience. We know that it's very inconvenient. I remember the feeling of, thinking about a raid the entire day and thinking about, how my warrior tank was going to, appropriately place the boss that everybody was going to be fighting and all that stuff. And then getting home and sitting down at the computer and battle nets down. Like I remember how frustrating that is. I know that it is inconvenient. And so really do empathize. And we are going to continue to do everything that we can to keep downtime and outages to a minimum, and do our best to eliminate them entirely. So we are really committed to doing that. So we do appreciate you And one of the things that we want to do to show that appreciation is we do have some discount codes that actually we haven't used these discount codes before, but if you have not picked up the legendary bundle, you can use legendary thanks to take $150 off the legendary bundle. Sourcebook thanks will do $75 off the sourcebook bundle, and then book thanks $5 off a single digital book. So by all means, take advantage of these codes if you haven't collected all of that content yet. And again, we do appreciate you. We appreciate the responses during the downtime. One thing that we were doing our best during the hours that we were experiencing some problems. We were trying to keep you updated. It looked like you appreciated that. So obviously, we'll always continue to be as open and transparent as we can, and we appreciate everything that you are all doing for us out there, because of course we couldn't do this without you, and we do appreciate your patience as we went through this incident. All right, let's talk about upcoming for a second. So we are working on Unearthed Arcana class feature variants. As I've previously explained, this was a little bit of a hand grenade that was dropped into our portal, just before the holiday break. But we are getting to this, and we know that a lot of players out there are wanting to use everything that is included in that playtest content. So we're working on it. Apple authentication, it's going to be required for Apple's App Store, so we're pushing into that. Other upcoming things this year, we're going to start looking at AL support, we hope. And then a potential target for 2020 is also inventory enhancements. That's another thing that we're talking about after we get past the things that we're currently working on, which are dice rolling and counter tracking and so on. So again, this isn't a complete list, but these are some of the things that we are working on in the kind of the upcoming window. And I know that upcoming and latest might blur together a little bit. So for instance, the Unearthed Arcana class feature variants, that probably should actually be up since it's in progress with the latest. So that just didn't get moved here. But these are the things that we're starting to target for going forward into this new year.